Hey, so let's sit down and talk for a minute. A few years ago, I started a podcast. Then I stopped. Uh, it was not because I ran out of like ideas. And so, what I want to talk about right now is where that whole thing came from. And I think you guys deserve to know that. And so, you got a couple of minutes. Let's sit down, have some coffee, and talk. So, after starting and stopping, it primarily came down to I didn't know what I was building, if that makes sense. So this is kind of like the season two, if you will. And it's going to be different. So I want to go back to why I started doing my podcast in the first place. So when I first recorded, I was experimenting. So, like, I had just started school. I had these thoughts about like technology, work, like mobility, and like how you grow. So, it didn't really have a structure. It was just kind of me showing up each week, going through what I thought was, to be honest with you, what I thought was going to happen. I can't even really say I thought it was what was going to happen. I just needed a creative release. That's really what it was. It wasn't very strategic. I wasn't really documenting all of my transitions. When I first started, I was just kind of going over what school was like. And it was because there was no one who was really doing that for me, or I hadn't seen anybody really documenting their process. Everybody kind of recorded when they got done with their schooling, and then they would come and say, "This is what SNHU online is like." Well, that's great, but if I don't know that you've gone through school and I've seen anything else that you've done, any other videos, it's hard for me to believe that you finished the school. So that's where the podcast kind of developed. So a lot of it was just me talking. And I don't want you to think that that's not fine. That is totally fine. And like, to be honest with you, that's what a lot of creators are doing is they spend a lot of time just talking, and that's part of the documenting process. So I was just not clear on my mission at all. And so I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So let's talk about why I stopped and why you should care about why I stopped. Because maybe this might be you a little bit later on. I stopped because I really didn't build a system around the whole podcasting process. The podcasting was kind of an afterthought. So it was like I would record a video, I would take the audio from that video and just throw it up on Spotify, and I used a different program at that time, and that was it. It really wasn't targeted towards sitting down, having a conversation with the people that I know are following me for the knowledge that I can give them about school. So there was really no cadence. There was like no topics. There was definitely not a defined thesis. Let's just say the T on that. So when work got really busy, I moved from doing the podcast and would miss 1 week, and then 1 week turned into 2 weeks, and then it turned into I can do it later, and my priorities shifted, and I realized something important. If I was going to learn to speak publicly, it needed to mean something. So instead of forcing the content, I focused on leveling up. So one of the first things that I did was I had to learn about clarity. I had to learn, who are you talking to? And I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just, who are you talking to? Are you talking to males? Are you talking to females? Are these people returning to school? Are these teenagers that are coming to your page to find out about SNHU? Who are you talking to? So I had to work on that first. I had to work on clarity and the craft and really trying to understand what it takes to do a podcast on a regular basis and what I wanted my podcast really to go, like the direction I wanted it to go. So that kind of brought me to kind of what's changed now. I am not the same person that recorded my very first podcast during the pandemic. That is no longer me. I'm at a career inflection point, which, if you guys decide to come back and check me out, you will find out what that career inflection point is. So I am considering a relocation. I am definitely refining my technical path, and I have considered what my next steps are going to be after going through SNHU. You know, where do I want to go get my master's? And what do I want my master's to be in? So I've made a decision that I want to study psychology and like understanding the psychology behind digital environments. And I'm building systems instead of reacting to like tons of stupid chaos, which was what was happening. I have become a much more intentional person. That does not mean that I do not have my faults. I just have become very intentional about the way that I do things and being more structured. That does not mean that I end up being or in some way not making a mistake. I make mistakes all the time, and I'm now happy about doing that. I am more honest about what I'm navigating. And a large part of that is why I came back to the podcast, because I felt like that's something that people need to know, is because you may be at this inflection point 4 years later if you decide to continue through SNHU online. So this podcast change is just simply because it needed to come about. So what is season 2? What is it about? What is this season 2 that you're listening to and trying to figure out if you want to come back? So it is really about evolution in real time. That's just to be honest with you. It's the evolution in real time. It is about career transitions, because these are not things that you find somebody who's coming out of college really talking about. Is how do you transition into a career? Like, was your degree worth it? I'm sure people are asking that, or they may ask that in this particular video. I am building autonomy. So I am documenting the things that I know technology-wise and how I'm dealing with identities and things like that in my work. I am definitely documenting my systems thinking. And whether someone comes along that journey or not, you may find me at a different point in your journey. But if you found this, it's because the algorithm thought that you needed to see it. I'm still focusing on mobility in my personal life. So micro mobility, if you don't know, I run a whole entire channel dedicated just to scooter riding. You guys may not know that. I like riding electric scooters and learning about them. So I do a whole entire separate channel just on that. Self-leadership. That is something that I think is underrated in the career path, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. So that's really what this kind of season 2 is going to be about. I'm not talking about hype. Okay, it's about documentation, and I'm going to share things that I've learned and being able to perfect as I go along. Because I've learned something maybe it's my age. Maybe that's what it is, but I have learned that if you don't document your evolution, you forget who you were becoming. Let me say that again. If you do not document your evolution, you will forget who you are becoming. It is very easy to overlook who you are becoming simply because somebody came into your life. Something happened. You had a baby. You got fired from your job. You still got to document your process. So here's what the format's going to be in case you're interested. This season will be structured. weekly episodes. They will typically go out on Sunday. Okay, it is a solo format, so it will be me, unless there's somebody like I'm thinking about bringing my advisor on to my podcast a little bit later, but I haven't made that decision quite yet. But for right now, it's a solo format. You will know when it starts what we're going to be talking about. So there will be a clear thesis per episode. It's not going to be a lot of rambling. Okay, so there's going to be more direction. It'll be an intentional recording. Okay, like I said, on Sunday, intentional production. Okay, this is not going to be just something that's there as background noise. I'm looking at this being intentional and it being a permanent record. So that's important. So finally, why? Why now? Why restart now? Because I'm standing at a crossroad. That's a true statement. I'm standing at a crossroad right now. Geographically, I'm standing at a crossroad. Professionally, I'm at a crossroad. Creatively, I'm at a crossroad. And if I don't capture this season, I'll look back and wish I had. And that was one of the things when I started in school, I told myself I never wanted to do. I did not want to go to school and then completely forget what school was about. So this is me, Giovanni Hale, committing. That's really what this is. So I'm not perfect, but I am committing to consistency. That I can give you, but I can't give you perfection. This isn't about becoming famous. I don't care about that. It's about becoming very clear. This season 2 of my life, it's intentional. So thank you for listening to me over these quaint little 10, 15, 20 minutes. I'll get a chance to see you next week, all right? Bye.